Today we're going to talk about 3 things you can and should do if you find out that your partner has a serious porn addiction and you don't know what to do with it. This is what you can do. So let's jump in. So what do you do if you find out that your partner has a serious porn addiction or serious secret that they have been hiding for a long time? That's what I want to talk about today. And this is kind of a follow-up if you watched 5 signs that he may be watching a lot of porn, right? It's kind of a follow-up to that, but I mean, if you already know that he has an issue with porn and this is a serious problem, then we can definitely jump right in. If you are still kind of wondering, you can check out that video as well, and that will kind of help you decide a little bit. But it's tough, right? And it's hard to evaluate how big of a problem it is if they're not opening up to you about it. If they are opening up to you about it, then you probably know how bad it is. And it's an awful thing to say, but it usually is even worse than they're telling you, right? Because people have so much shame and stuff around this that they often hide it and don't disclose like how bad it is and the intensity of how bad it is with that. So what can we do in this situation as the partner? Or we find out, we feel betrayed, we feel lost, we feel angry, we feel hurt, we feel not good enough. Like, the list of how this impacts us is so awful and so heavy, and it just can go on and on and on. And it can be as intense as having betrayal trauma, which I have lots of videos and playlists on as well, because betrayal trauma is so heavy and that can come with so much. Or it can be like not light, but you know, a little less intense. But either way, the impact on us is big. So what can you do? So the first thing that I want to talk about here is you have to take care of yourself and get your own support to work through some of this, because this has impacted you in a lot of ways. And that doesn't mean that you have to go to therapy, but it does help if you can and want to, for sure, to work through some of this stuff. But you have to get back to focusing on you a bit and taking care of the stuff that's coming up for you. Because a lot of things that this hits is insecurities about our bodies, or about our worth, or if we're good enough, or if we're good enough partners, or whatever. It hits all of that stuff, and that really hurts. And it usually hits our pain points. So the stuff that already hurts, that's what it hits and brings up and just makes so much worse. So we have to be able to talk through that and work through that. If you have friends that you can talk to, that can help. A lot of outlets that I find helpful for people are, you know, finding outlets like healing yoga or that kind of thing. But if we can add in as much as we can and are able to, that helps. And just give yourself the permission and the space and the time to be like, I need to take care of myself here. You have all of this stuff and we have all of this stuff, and you've impacted me in all of these ways, and we're gonna have to work on that, right? If you choose to stay in this relationship. But I also have to be okay and more okay within myself to even handle this. And that's the thing. All of this stuff is so heavy and so hard to work through that if you're not figuring out ways to ground back into yourself and find some sort of calm-ish place, it will make you crazy, right? It will make you go a little crazy anyway, but this can help us keep a little bit more calm and grounded. And the difference between doing some of this, even in small ways, and not doing it is so noticeable and so huge. So obviously this can look like anything. Like, I love meditation for myself, you know, guided meditations, different styles of meditation. I find that really helpful, but that's not for everybody. So try that out if you want to. You want to, you know, YouTube a calming meditation or a meditation to relieve anxiety, or you can do all of that stuff too, or message me if you want some recommendations. You can try that for sure. If that's not for you, you don't have to do that. You can talk to somebody, reach out to me, reach out to somebody else, talk to somebody you trust, but you gotta find a way to get it out a bit, you know? Some people really like art and drawing and music and those kind of projects. All of this stuff is helpful and healing, but we have to just choose it. Like, choose something and try it, right? and maybe play with it a little bit and try different things and dabble here and dabble there and see what helps and what helps you feel more grounded. And also in this whole self-care thing, allow yourself space to just feel what you're feeling. Be mad, be angry, be sad, let yourself cry, let yourself have a binging Netflix night if you need to, and just be upset. Like, if you can find the space for that and allow yourself to do that, let yourself do that. This sucks, this is hard. Like, we can have space to just feel what we're feeling and let that come out and try to work through it and just let it be, right? Because sometimes the sadness and the anger, it needs to come out. It can't be in all the time where it gets bigger and wants to explode. So if we can find outlets to let it out and just feel it, and then also process it later and find ways to kind of work through it later, that's really helpful. So that's the first thing that I'm gonna plug, and I think you should keep doing that as much as you can along with the process in a way that works for you, of course. And I wrote these down because I always forget or get off on tangents. I also have an article on all of this stuff too, so if you want the article form, just comment or message me and I'll send that to you as well, so you can refer back to it. But the next thing that I talk about, and that's pretty tough, is boundaries, because a lot of us get so upset when we find out these things, and we want to say things like, if you do this again, I'm leaving, or, you know, these big threats or claims. And that's how we feel and that's what we want, but often that's a lot harder to actually do and carry out, right? So just like, you know, with your kids, if you have kids, you don't want to make empty threats that you can't hold. You don't want to do that here either. Now, of course, if you do it in anger, like, that happens, you're upset. But we want to actually sit back and evaluate what our boundaries are. So if you do say that if you do this again, I'm leaving, is that really what you can do? Are you able to do that? Is that something that you're going to carry out? Or is there more room in here than you wish there were, right? Because you don't want them to do this again. Obviously, you want them to stop. And we know that that's probably not gonna happen in the way that you want it to, or we wish it would happen. It takes a lot more time and effort and work than we want it to. So where is your boundaries? What are you willing and able to put up with and deal with? How involved do you want to be, and how involved are you able to be? So I want to look at those two things in all of these areas, because sometimes what we want and we wish we could give is different than what we can. So if you have a lot going on, or you're stressed, or this has really impacted you, you may not be able to give everything that you want to. You may not have the space or the energy or the ability to hold that, and that's okay. That's totally fine. We just need to look at that so we can set that up. So look at what you can give, how involved you want to be. Do you want to go to therapy with them? Do you want to go to treatment with them? Do you want them to check in with you more about their recovery and what's going on and how often this is coming up for them? You can decide how much you want to be involved in that, because they need to be doing their own work and working on this for sure and putting in a lot of effort if they're going to get through it. And they're also probably going to have people that they have to be accountable to and check in with. And one of those people can be you if you guys decide that's what you want and that's good for you. And you can also set limits around that. So maybe you do want to be kind of an accountability partner, but you don't want all the details and all the yucky stuff all the time. You just want to know when they relapse and what they're doing about it, or what assignment or what thing they're working on that week, right? So you can set up, this is what I want to know, and this is what I expect you to disclose to me. And this is what I don't want because it's too much, right? So look at that and discuss that and talk that through with them. And again, sometimes that's helpful to have a therapist or have somebody to help navigate that and work through that with you guys and get you on the same page, because you have to kind of be a little bit more on the same page and on board with each other in this. But know that you are allowed to set your boundaries and hold those in the way that you want to and the way that works best for you. So we want to take back some of the power that we may have lost here, because this feels so draining and awful and just painful that we need to get back to, okay, this is what I can do, this is what I can't. And some women that have been really, really hurt in this, they can't give a lot. They have to really pull back and put up those boundaries while they're healing because they can't deal with it. And some people have a little more room to be able to kind of engage or not. So you have to evaluate that for you and decide what's best for you, and know that what's best for you is important here. You deserve to get this met in the way that you want it to, as much as you can control. Obviously you can't control everything or how he acts or anything, but you can control what your boundaries are and what you put up with and how much you're taking care of yourself, right? So the last thing that I think we need to look at is looking at your cycle. And this gets in a little bit more into sort of the depth and the sort of therapeutic side, the psychological side of all of this. But what I see often with couples in this is that they're kind of caught in a little bit of an abuse cycle. It can be an actual abuse cycle if it's really intense, or it can just be more of the cycle that you guys have created within this that's still not good. We're stuck in this thing, right? So especially if he has been doing this for a long time, what often happens is things are going pretty well for a while and then they start to decline, and maybe you feel it and you notice and you can tell something's off, but maybe you're not sure what's off, or you're scared, or you're busy, or whatever. There's a lot going on there, but you know something's going off and not going well, and then he relapses. And whether you know that or not, often we can feel it, or we know something's changing, but sometimes we know exactly what's going on. So he relapses, something happens, he feels bad, maybe he is openly talking to you about this, so he goes into his shame or his trying to repair and recover stuff, and it's really bad for a while. Especially if you just catch him or find out or find something on his phone that he's been trying to hide. That piece is really, really painful. I have a whole video on how painful it is to find out someone's stuff without them confessing. The words aren't coming to me for some reason, but like catching them in the lie is sometimes really, really, really harmful, and even more so than them disclosing, right? So that happens, and then after all of that pain, just like in the abuse cycle, we often go into kind of the him repairing, or the honeymoon phase, or him really trying hard, or making all these promises, or making all these efforts, or being really open, or doing all the things you want him to do, right? So that then feels a little better, and then it starts over again. Something starts to decline, and then we are going and going and going again. And that looks different for every couple and every situation, but that's kind of the outline that maybe you can see how you guys are and where you fit and what that kind of looks like for you, and where maybe it takes a lot of time and where maybe you're going through quickly, and kind of identify that. Because we want to first look at it and understand it, and then try to interrupt it and break it up and fix that. And this is something that obviously he has to be on board with and really working on, because he's the major part of this, but you're wrapped up in it all too. So you can look at where you want to put more boundaries, what's not okay for you, what you can do, how you can support in some ways, how you can, you know, sort of set different expectations and say this has to change here, this is what I need here, and talk about that. So that can be a really good thing to work through together if you're able to without support. And if you're not able to without support, then go to a therapist or talk to me and work through that whole thing. Because we have to change the cycles, right? For everything that's tough and hard and heavy in our lives, it's usually some sort of bad cycle that we're repeating, sometimes from childhood, or sometimes something that we've created in this new relationship or in this new thing. But we have to figure out how to interrupt that cycle to be able to move forward and feel better and be okay, right? So those are kind of my 3 things that we want to look at and tackle: self-care, boundaries, and looking at identifying and interrupting that negative cycle that you're stuck in. So see if you can work on those and what things you can work on there. Message me if you want some of these articles and things to refer back to, if you need more support, if you have any questions. Of course, always comment below if you do, or reach out to me on my website, submit a question, or just contact me, and I'm happy to help as much as I can.